Guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of uh, subjects that I've been thinking about, and for some reason or another, when I make one of these videos, some of these things I just forget to talk about it because pretty much freewheel these videos. I'm just like having a conversation and talking about what's on my mind. I don't structure everything out before I do it. This is this is no budget, right? These videos are just a guy talking to a camera and communicating with you guys and about his opinions and concerns about NASCAR games, stuff like that. Um, but getting to the main point, I want to talk a little bit about game engines. A lot of people talk about that stuff or bring it up in relation to NASCAR games. And the other thing that is a concern I'm having about this game, and that's the difficulty level of the game. It's starting to raise a serious red flag for me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, before we get to that, I do want to talk about the great game engine debate, right? And one popular thing I see on almost every comment section or anywhere that this game is being discussed is the first thing people mention is the Unity engine and how it's they need a better engine. They need a better engine. That's what's holding them back. That's why they can't make do this or do that or get the game to run this way. And I'll admit, last year when that subject first came up, I kind of joined that bandwagon because it made sense to me. But as time went on, the more I thought about it, I started, I have my own way of thinking about things. Sometimes, I could be wrong or whatever, but it's just, everybody has their own way of thinking. And I try to use my logic, for whatever it's worth, when I look at things, right? And as time went on, I thought about it, and some things didn't make sense to me. And it's like people automatically want to put everything on the game engine. It's like, this is what we need. This is what the blame is for everything. And it somehow, in my mind, my logic says to me, a good carpenter doesn't blame his tools, right? Or a decent mechanic doesn't blame his tools, right? If you know what you're doing and you have adequate tools, you should be able to accomplish anything, right? And while I don't think that the Unity engine is the best engine, and I do agree there are better engines, right? So I don't want people to take this the wrong way. Um, that they might be able to do some things better with a better game engine, but I don't think it's a good thing that we're solely focused on it's all this engine, right? I think a good developer can use the Unity engine and make a great game out of it, depending on what your goal is, right? And what I mean is, you got different types of games. You have open world games, you have linear games, and I would consider, well, I do consider NASCAR games to be very linear. It's not an open world game, meaning it's a very closed environment, and all you really have are tracks and a certain number of cars for AI. And then everything else that's within that closed environment, right, which is, being rendered by the developer, right, which is to me like an artist who's drawing, right? And there are different tools you can use, and these game engines are tools. And what a game engine basically does is provide you with a blueprint to build a game on, right? And within that blueprint, there's different tools. It helps you, like a lot of these engines that are really advanced, they'll help you automatically achieve certain things where maybe with another engine you have to take those extra steps, and it'll save you some time and things like that. Now, I I thought about that and I said to myself, like I said, I don't think a good carpenter doesn't blame his tools. And I started looking around and I just wanted to find out a little bit more about this Unity game engine that everybody hates. And from what I've seen, and I'm not an expert, okay, but from what little I've dug up and I've seen videos on YouTube, anybody can just look up the Unity game engine, and you'll see a lot of them versus Unreal or whatever the other engines are that other people rave about, and comparison videos and people that talk about game development and how they've used both. And the conclusion I've come to is that while there is a difference with the game engines, it's not as big as people make it out to be. And the one constant I've seen and heard from people on other videos and talked about it online is that the Unity engine is not a bad engine. It's very capable of doing some really good things. And there are videos where you can see that the graphics and all this other stuff, it's not bad at all. And it's very comparable to these other engines that people rave about. And I think it's just the developer or the person using this engine, it's the limit is their imagination and how they use the tools that the Unity engine gives to them. It's not as limited as people think. It's not a bad engine. And a lot of people assume, oh, it's because it's free to use that it must not be good. That's not true. And from what I've seen, the Unity engine gained a bad reputation because early on there was some indie developers who made some games and they just weren't good games. So because the game wasn't good, people automatically said, well, what's the common denominator? Oh, they're all using this free game engine, that's the Unity engine. So that must be the problem. That's not what it is. You know, you can use the Unity engine, and if you have imagination and the right people who understand how to use it properly, you can make a really good game. And I just find it a little disturbing that so many people are jumping on that bandwagon. I think that's like you're using the game engine as a scapegoat for the developer. You know, if the developer is really good at what he does, you can do some really great things with it. Again, I'm not saying that it wouldn't help to use a better game engine. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not an expert on the subject. But it's just that some things don't make sense to me. And when I see so many people jumping on this bandwagon, I took a step back myself. And I said, let me look further into it. And from what I see, to be honest with you, that's not holding this game back. Also, like I said, NASCAR games are not open world games. They're very closed environments. It's a linear game, right? You're in a very linear environment, and rendering the racetracks and 39 AI cars and making those cars do what you want them to do and behave the way you want them to behave, it's not that hard. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying in comparison to an open world game like Grand Theft Auto and all these other open world games that we see all the time now, Assassin's Creed, anything. Just an open world game is a living, breathing environment, huge maps with traffic, cars, AI, weather effects. None of these things you have to deal with in a NASCAR game. It's just rendering the track. The track is a static environment. It's just once you render it, it's there. Okay? It doesn't take a lot. You don't see the crowd moving around, guys walking around with a hot dog and a beer and all kinds of stuff happening in the stands. None of that. This is all static. It's just drawn and it's there. There's no weather effects. So even though you have supposed to have time of day and just, how the sun affects the track, we haven't really seen that in come into effect in a deep way, right? It's barely noticeable. it's nothing compared to even Project Cars or these other games. They're using weather effects, sophisticated weather effects, rain, snow. So those games are doing a lot more. So it's a static environment. You just got to render the tracks properly, and you got to make 39 AI cars behave properly. Physics, handling, make that sense of awareness work properly, and the pit strategy, right? The strategy they use to when to pit, uh, what changes to make. So what I'm trying to say is that developing a NASCAR game is nowhere near as intense or difficult as it is to do one of these other games. These other games are all leaps and bounds more um, difficult, especially open world games. There's so much more going on, things you have to get to work properly. So this Unity engine, I really don't think is the main culprit to why games haven't been good up to now, especially last year's game. Um, the graphics aren't the best, but I think that's partly due to the developer. You know, you give a good artist a set of brushes and paint and a canvas, and if he's talented, he can do anything. Could you imagine an artist saying, "Well, I did a crappy portrait because the brushes suck, and that I don't like that kind of paint. You know, there's better oil-based paint," and you wouldn't accept that. You'd say, "Well, you just suck as an artist. A good artist can use anything and create something." And this Unity engine is not the best engine, but a good developer can use it and do great things with it. Also, this idea that the physics, the handling, and all this stuff is being held back by the engine doesn't make sense to me. That stuff is really coding and programming. And if you look back at games like Dirt to Daytona and the Thunder series, you know, those games, what were they using? Those consoles were far inferior to what we're using now. So were they even using game engines? Was it done differently? I don't know. But I could tell you one thing. There's nobody in their right mind that's going to say, well, whatever they were using was better than what this Unity engine does today. That doesn't make sense, right? So they were able to accomplish more with what? So what I'm saying is, yes, there are better engines out there, and maybe that would help. But I think that the difference, people are overestimating it. I think it's the developers, right? And from what little I've seen and what little research I've done, even people that talked about it, that have used it, they'll tell you you can do a lot with those engines. You just got to know how to use it. And I don't know why 704 Games chose the Unity engine. Everybody's assuming it's because it's free to use. Well, how expensive is it to buy an engine or pay for an engine to use it? It can't be that expensive. If you're a game developer, that's got to be peanuts. That's got to be a drop in the bucket to your budget, right? So certain things don't make sense. They must have chose to use the Unity engine for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but what I'm just trying to say to you guys is I wouldn't jump so hard on this game engine thing as far as whatever issues are there in the game or whatever, whatever the game's lacking. I just think it's up to the developer. Maybe they don't have enough guys. I don't know how many people are working on this game or have been, right? What if the entire development team, I'm just throwing a number out there, is 10 guys total? Programming, rendering, the art, and how the game looks visually, how the physics work, how everything works. I don't know what's involved, but you got an X number of people working on that. So maybe whatever number that is smaller than it should be. And that's why certain things can't get done on time or why certain things don't work as well as they should. That makes more sense to me than to just say, well, it's this crappy game engine. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree, and that's fine. You know, some of you guys know a lot more about this than I do. And one last thing about this. I want to talk real quick about NASCAR 2003, the season, right? Or season. That was the PC Papyrus game, right? I've never really talked about it. And when I talk about, like, okay, what are the top NASCAR games we've ever had? The reason I've never brought that up is because it's strictly a PC game. So I never looked at it, and it was almost apples and oranges. But clearly, that game was the best game in terms of physics, handling, and AI. So I've never played it, but I've seen it, and I've heard people talk about it, and I've checked it out on YouTube and stuff. It is the pinnacle of anything ever made with NASCAR attached to it. So what engine was that based on? When Papyrus made that game, I don't know. But that game is almost 15 years old, and people are still playing it today. And it's still considered, in terms of physics and handling and the AI and the racing, it's still considered the best we've ever had. And it's sad to say because it's almost 15 years old, but people still play that game today, and it's fantastic. And it's sad that we haven't had something that at least matches that in 15 years. That being said, my point is, whatever engine that was using, you can't tell me that this Unity engine is worse. It's Papyrus, the developer. Those guys really were passionate about making NASCAR games, and they really put their heart and soul into it. And they took every extra, anything extra they had to do, they did it, right? So the developer gets full credit for how great that game was, and people still play it today, and they mod it. So I just wanted to bring that up because I want people to think, you know what? We keep blaming this Unity engine, and I look more towards the developer. Any shortcomings, it has to do with the development, the team working on the game. Maybe it's just they don't have enough people, right? I don't know, but that makes more sense to me than blaming everything on the Unity engine. So I don't want to talk about that anymore. I just wanted to put that out there because I see it a lot in comment sections. I like to look through the comment sections of other people's videos, whether it's Real Radman or What If Racing or any of these other guys. There's a lot of guys that talk about this stuff and make videos, and I consider us all part of a community, right? Together, we stick together and we discuss this stuff and we try to push forward and get these developers to listen to us. That's how we affect change. I like everything I've seen so far about the development of this game. You guys see that I've been mostly positive. And, you know, the last video with the Eldora gameplay, I talked a little bit about it, and I just want to talk a little bit more about it. Something that caused a red flag for me, and I am a little bit worried about. And, you know, I'm still excited about the game. I haven't changed how I feel so far. I really like everything they've been doing. I like the direction they're going. But we still don't know anything about career mode yet, which we will. And it looks to me like they're releasing maybe once a week. I assume next week they'll release something about maybe one of the other tracks, right? They did Iowa, then this weekend they did Eldora, and then I'm sure one of these other new tracks that are in the game, one of the road courses, they'll probably release something showing that. But what I'm really looking forward to is the career mode. I want to see some presentation. We haven't seen anything in terms of presentation except for a little clip of Victory Lane Celebration, which didn't look that impressive, but that's all we've seen so far. And even in this Eldora video, you see that the guy finished the race, nothing happened. It looked a lot like last year. It just showed you your speed rating and all this stuff. And I was like watching, and I was like, nothing's happening. And maybe the victory lane celebration and all that. Maybe that's only part of career mode. I don't know, but I was kind of worried. It's like there's no presentation that they've shown, and I'm not super worried about it because they did say that they're excited about the revamped career mode and they're gonna talk about it. So at some point, we're only about a month away from release, so it can't be that far away. And once we see that, once we maybe see some presentation, hopefully they show how the statistics are going to be laid out and stuff like that, then we'll know more, and hopefully I can get excited about that as well. But I am concerned about the difficulty, and this is the first video that they showed where it was at 103 difficulty. It was in simulation, and well, not simulation or whatever they call it. It's they got like two versions now. They got like an easy arcade mode, and then one with no traction control or whatever. In either case, this is supposed to be a more difficult setting, and it looks so easy. It bothers me. It's a real concern to me, and I hope that this game gives you more challenge, because that's going to make or break this game. In spite of all these positives and all these good things that they're adding to the game and that I'm excited about, it won't matter if the game is too easy. And this is the thing that really bothers me, that when they first started releasing information about this game, one of the first things that they said was that they were hearing that last year's game was too difficult, and they wanted it, not to be as difficult. And that really, really bothered me, because when I heard that, that told me this game it could be pretty bad in terms of difficulty. And there's no challenge to the racing. I don't care how good everything else is, it's gonna bomb. And I'd rather that they make the game too difficult where you could tune it down, right? Because you can tone it down. But if it's at 103 and the max is 105, how much more difficult it's going to be? The guy finished, it was what? I don't remember how many laps it was. Maybe 10, 12, 15 laps, whatever it was. And he finished in second place. And he was just blowing by people. That's not fun. That looks boring. And even if you... What bothers me is that they seem to be focused on trying to appease casual gamers. And I keep telling you guys, I've said it 100 times, you can't try to appease hardcore and casual. You got to pick a lane. And it seems like, even if, I don't even know if they're trying to do both anymore. It just seems like they're just focused on casual gaming. And I'm telling you, I got news for you, I promise you. Casual gamers are not going to have fun if the game's too easy. Because even a casual gamer, once they get a hang of it, they're going to be blowing by these cars. It's not fun. And casual gamers don't make up the majority of your market. It's us hardcore guys. We're the ones that are looking forward to the game more than anybody. You got to focus a little more on the hardcore gamer. And I don't expect this to be a full-blown simulator. I get it. And I've accepted it. But that doesn't mean you can't make this game a little more challenging and make the everything just a little more realistic. It just feels so easy, so arcadey. That's why it feels so arcadish. You shouldn't be blowing by cars this way. And I've always said the most enjoyment I've ever had as a racer is when you're fighting for those one or two spots, lap after lap. And it's hard, but it's not, it's a sweet spot. And you could feel progress, but it's not easy. And you're making small passes, and sometimes you could go lap after lap, and it's just two guys going at it for a spot. That's when racing is good. That's when it's fun. So even if the physics aren't the best, which we know they're not going to be, if the AI is challenging and the strategy is good, it's going to be fun and immersive. But if it's too easy, nothing else matters. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I hope that I'm concerned about nothing. I hope it's not going to be a problem. But if you told me last year's game was too easy, I want to know where are they getting this information. Because I look at these comment sections, I don't see anybody saying, hey, this game's too hard. I didn't see that last year. That's one of the last things I would have thought. If anything, a lot of it was easy. Even on the most difficult setting, yes, some tracks were hard, right? And then other tracks were super easy. I'd rather that it's a little too difficult, and then you could tone it down, right? You got some tunability. So if it's too hard at 105 and it's impossible to win, then you could tone it down and find that sweet spot where it's just challenging enough that you still have a chance to win, but it's hard, and you got room to play with. If you're at 103 and it looks this simple and easy, where are you going to go? You're just going to max it out at 105? How much harder is it going to be? And we don't even know if this guy had a setup, if this was off the stock setup. So once you get a setup, it's going to be even easier. I don't know if I'm worried about nothing, which I hope that's the case, or if this is really a legitimate problem. So I am worried. It is a red flag. What do you guys think about that? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about those two things. We're probably not going to hear anything else till next weekend. It seems like every weekend that's what they're going to do, release something else. And it looks like right now they're just going track by track. They were at Iowa, now Eldora. Then I'm assuming the next track's going to be one of the new tracks, and they'll show you a little more gameplay. But I really want to hear about career mode. I want more about presentation. We still don't see too much in terms of menu and how the stats are laid out, how the interface is. Those are the things that I really want to know about. And maybe you guys could communicate with them on Twitter or Facebook, find out, a little more about the difficulty. I didn't like hearing that the game was too easy last year. That was a real red flag for me. And I'm still excited about the game. I'm still high on all the things they're adding to it, but I'm just keeping it real. I've always been straight up, and I call it like I see it. And when there's something to praise, I do. And when there's something to criticize, I do that as well. So that's what concerns me right now. That's the number one thing. If this game is too easy, none of this other stuff is going to matter. So what do you guys think? I look forward to your comments. And I guess until they release some more information, that might be it for now. And that's it. So I look forward to your comments.